guys, welcome to Mark Anthony's Music Picks. We're on episode 17 now. Today I want to regroup and go back to talk about somebody that I talked about probably 10 episodes back, and that's Danny Tenaglia, one of my favorite New York superhero DJs. I put him up in the top 5 American DJs of all time. I've always had high regard for him. He started his production career, I believe, back in the early 90s, maybe as early as 1990. He is known for his remixing, and back then all the big names were remixing pop acts, and there were a lot of remixes involving vocals, which you don't see as much of anymore, although obviously it still happens. And Tenaglia was right at the forefront of that. And if you look at his back catalog, there's a lot of remixes to go through. So today what I want to do is try to facilitate for you what I've found to be the best Tenaglia remixes of all time. I'm not saying that this is an all-inclusive list. There's obviously going to be some gaps in here, and honestly I'm hoping that you guys can point out some of the ones that I may have missed. But for me, I'm going to cover the ones that I've played the most in the last we'll say 10 to 15 years, and let's get started. First up is a remix by Tenaglia, obviously, of the Ananda project, and this is their track called Cascades of Color. Kind of a stompy, heavy, straight up house kick drum in this, mixed with a really beautiful vocal, and let's go to the clip for that. The vocal for that is very catchy, very uplifting, and I think it's an example of a vocal, the type of vocal that you just don't hear anymore. I mean, the last truly huge vocal that I can think of is The Cure and the Cause from 2006. I mean, what after that has really been really sat down and thought out and really well written. People just aren't spending the amount of time that they used to actually really write and arrange a vocal. So I recommend this. I've played this in daytime sets and had really good success with it. Had a couple of people ask about it, and a couple of the heads, the older people in their 30s and 40s knew what it was right away, and I got a great response. Easy to mix and probably 10 minutes long, just a jam. Check that out. Next up is more of a track for what I picture to be for the super clubs. This is by Circuit Boy. This is by Circuit Boy, and it's the track called The Door. Now, this is featuring Alan T. Alan T is quite the New York character. He basically designated himself, or maybe other people designated him, as almost like a New York mascot for the circuit scene. So it was kind of like if Alan T came to the party, you were guaranteed that he was going to be dressed and behaving in the most outrageous way that you could imagine, and with the idea of just being fun and friendly and just getting people fired up. He was just a complete wild man. So you've got Alan T doing the vocal on this, and it's like a monologue where he's pretending to work the door at a nightclub. So the getting past the door guy at a New York nightclub used to be an ordeal. It's not so much the case now with everything's like tickets, and it's just a different experience when you go to the door. But I mean, there were times for me when I went to Sound Factory, I got there at 8 in the morning, 3 hours on the train, stayed up from the night before at a keg party somewhere, and just decided to go. And the guy at the door didn't like my shoes and sent me home. It was just really defeating, humiliating shit. So anyway, what Alan T is trying to create here is the experience of having to get past him at the door and his delegations and his decision making, and it's kind of it's a very entertaining monologue. But the track itself has this kind of chiming, like bing, bing, bong kind of thing going on. Let's go to the clip there. That chime sound, it just kind of like ricochets around the club and has like a just like a really nasty, energizing percussive effect. I've played this at clubs, not recently because like I don't play big rooms, I don't get the chance to anymore, but when I used to play like the midnight or the 1 a.m. slot back at like mediums or medium to largest size clubs in Philadelphia, I would sneak this in and it just goes off, man. And I think it's aged really well. Just a total heater. Give that one a go. Next up, another Tenaglia remix. We've got the Funky Green Dogs. If you were clubbing in the mid to late 90s, this came out in 96. If you were in that original scene, when the club scene, to me, it really blew up in like 1999. That's when it just seemed like all these like crazy, unique vocals were coming out. Funky Green Dogs is M.A.M.P, which is Oscar G and Ralph Falcon, and Tenaglia remixed this. The remix that I like on here is the I'm sorry, it's the, I think it's the 27th Street edit or the Twilo edit. Either way, it's the Tenaglia on the A1, and it's got that really hard, like stompy kind of Tenaglia big room club vibe that's going on, and a really catchy vocal. Let's go to the vocal here. You got me fired up, you got me so. So vocal, very catchy, very familiar. It was on like every mix compilation that was out there back then, like Louis DeVito. Well, actually Louis DeVito didn't feature this, but it was on like that type of, like if you bought like a New York mix CD, this was on it. So really awesome. Check that out. I've had people say that they dislike this track because they think the vocal's bad. I feel like if you dislike this vocal, you probably just hate yourself on some level and you're not aware of it. Next up, probably lesser known, the least known out of anything that I picked up so far. This is WayneG, Twisted. And it's the, this came out in 1998. And again, this is built for big rooms. The vocal in this, I'm gonna admit, is completely and totally shameless. It basically typifies the environment and the type of people that you may have been running into if you went clubbing in the late 90s or early 2000s. Like, people were really just there to get wasted. And this vocal kind of captures that in, like I said, a completely shameless fashion. Let's check that out.
Do you know where the dealers are? I mean, can you get me high? See ya. Later. I'm sick and tired of shit drugs and naff queens. Do you know what that means? It's over.
I think the British accent there is really cool, and you've got, you know, the trademark Tenaglia kind of hard stomping, hard house, hard tribal, hard progressive kind of fusion going on there. You could tell it's from the late 90s, but I think it's aged well, and I would still be okay playing this today. The next two tracks that I want to talk about are contained on this bootleg vinyl that I got. Now, if you go to Discogs, you can't get this anymore because it was caught in the filter of when they sweep through and they try to get rid of a lot of the bootlegs, I guess to make their marketplace look a little bit cleaner. The first track that you need from this is one that you can get in 5 or 10 other forms, easy to get, and that's Green Velvet's Flash. I'm gonna go straight to the clip for this, and then I want to talk about why I like it so much.
But this is no live beat matter. Campus ready, prepare to flash.
Yeah, the reason that I really like that so much is that rolling bass line, the kind of like Joker-esque hee 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 ha ha, and then that bass line just comes like rolling through. It's like, first of all, where did Tenaglia even get a bass line like that? It's freaking huge. And I got to hear this once out, not by Tenaglia, but I was at a party in Philadelphia, and it was like an auto garage that had been rented out. I guess you could call it a warehouse party, but it wasn't really. It was just like an abandoned auto shop. But it had a really high ceiling, and it was nice to hear that track come through. And I remember when the DJ played it, like I was the guy running up to the booth, like, oh, what? Like, I can't believe it. And we kind of like high-fived over it, like we were both on the same wavelength for that one. There's also another track on here. Actually, let me just address that the track list on this is awesome. So side A, Green Velvet Flash. Side B, Grace Jones, Cradle to the Grave. I'm actually going to talk about that later in this video because that's a mislabel. Side D, Fuji's Killing Me Softly. Not crazy about that, but it has also another track called Voodoo Ray. And that's the early rave classic from 1989, I believe Voodoo Ray first came out, and it's considered one of the first club songs ever with the very familiar vocal. Let's go to the sample for that. So yeah, as you can see, Voodoo Ray was remixed by Tenaglia, and that remix was done in 1996. For some reason, it seems like the licensing for that was a little bit sketchy. I'm not sure if it was a bootleg. I'm sure Tenaglia made it, but I'm not sure why it didn't get an official release. But there must be some reason for that. There's also another track that I don't have a sample of that you should probably check out that's noteworthy here, which is the Kings of Tomorrow, Finally, Tenaglia remix. I mean, that's a really big vocal too. I just, for the sake of keeping this video under control, I'm not gonna do a sample for that one. But coming down the home stretch here, one more to go. That Grace Jones track that is on the last record that I showed you is not actually a Tenaglia remix. So there's some confusion around that. If you look on YouTube, you might see Grace Jones Cradle to Grave Tenaglia remix. That's not actually him. For many years I thought it was him because the track sounds like him. But it's actually DJ Emily that made that. DJ Emily made 1 or 2 records I can see on Discogs in 1998 and 2000. This is one of them, and this is the one, if you want to go into the marketplace and buy it, you can get this. I like mix number 1. There's mix number 2 on the back, and it's similar elements, just different arrangement.
Can't see where I run, no matter how far. Can't see where I run, no matter how far. I am woman, I am son, I can give birth to sheep, I can give birth to son, and I can be cool, soft like the breeze. I'll be a hurricane, ripping up trees. Once a man, twice a boy. Once a man, twice a boy. I can scheme.
Love the eerie, haunted vibe there, twisted sound, very suited for a dark venue. So that's it. I'm going to wrap up today's episode. Danny, thank you so much for all your works in the 90s and early 2000s. I know lately you've only done original productions. Maybe you could bust out one more remix for us before you retire here. Thank you for everything, and take care.